Hi everybody, welcome to Paul Programs, and today we're going to talk about visual scripting. So, you may be wondering, what is visual scripting? Well, visual scripting is a way for game developers to make game mechanics and functionality without the need of a programming language. So, throw away those IDEs, ignore your text editors. We're going to be working just with nodes, connecting objects and functionality to make things happen in your game. So a great example of how this actually works is Game Builder's Garage from Nintendo, Dreams from Media Molecule, and WarioWare. In these games, you're able to actually make full games or micro games using a form of visual scripting where you have your object and you give it some kind of action or functionality that'll make it do something or react to something. This removes the need of having to actually get on a keyboard and type out what you need to do, build out all the kind of back end stuff. It's just streamlines a lot of that work and makes it simpler to get something up and running really quickly. Alright, so some of you may be wondering now, why use visual scripting when I could just, spend some time learning a programming language? Well, that's kind of part of the problem. Learning programming languages isn't easy. It does require time. Different engines use different programming languages. If you're working with Unreal, you'll have to learn C++. If you're working with Unity, you're going to have to worry about C#. And with each of those, there's nuances, difference of things needed by each. And then that doesn't even include the fact, like, what if you decide to build your own thing? Then you have to figure out what language you want to work with there. And every pretty much device has its own requirements, but visual scripting allows you to kind of remove that layer of coding language and focus exactly on the mechanics you're trying to build. So you can put all your effort on what you're building and not how you build it, which will allow you to build something pretty amazing really quickly without having to get kind of in the weeds of, well, I need to make sure this language uses this feature this specific way. So that's really the big gist of why using visual scripting is really beneficial. I mean, you still won't get like the level of detailed control as you would if you use a programming language, but if you're really building a game that you have a full understanding and you know that you don't need anything super crazy or unique or to build out your own physics engine or something like that, then visual scripting could allow you to get a lot done with a lot less effort. Alright, so for us to get a good idea of how visual scripting actually works, we're going to actually jump into the Unreal Engine and take a look at their blueprint system. This is their version of visual scripting built into the engine, and it's been part of the engine for a very long time. So with that said, let's get started. So usually when you first open Unreal, you'll get this big old area, you'll see all your content, and it may be arranged a little differently than how I have it here. But if you want to actually say, in this case, want to create some kind of UI and a blueprint to work under that, you can right click, and from here you can actually select your blueprint class, and that'll create a blueprint directly for you, and then you can use that. Or if you want to make a widget, you have the ability to select user interface and select a widget blueprint, and we'll just select our basic user widget, which will give us our base area, and you can give it a name. So we're going to give this widget blueprint, so WBP is what I usually like to name it, and we'll call it test UI. All right, with that said, we can now double click and we're brought to this screen. This will allow us to actually create our UI and all the different UI elements, but that's not going to be our focus in this. Our focus is going to be to go all the way up to this top right corner where you can see, like right now we're in designer, but we really want to go graph. And here is basically our first look and introduction to blueprints. As you can see, there's some pre-generated events that you can actually drag for execution. So once this actually runs, it'll hit this execution and tell the next step to go in, which would be your next node in the blueprint, or your functionality for those who are familiar for more of a programming side of thought or so on. But to understand this greater, we need to take a look here on the left side. So we're really going to mainly focus on two things. We have our functions, which these are your actions that will be performed when you're doing something within a game. So in this game, this one we can call check for game over. And this will be a very simple one. And from here, we're taken here, and this is where it begins its execution. And say we want to check if the player's health is over something. Well, for that, we're going to need some kind of object. In this case, we'll use a check to see if the player actually is alive or has health. So back on this left side, we have something called variables. And for those unfamiliar, what it is basically those are your objects which may contain data or something related to your game, be it your character, how fast they move, if they have speed, so on and so forth. So in this case, we want to create just a simple variable, and we'll call it is alive. All right. And this is a Boolean, which is a type that checks if it's true or false. And with this, you can choose from all sorts of different types that you may use in a game, be it numbers like floats or integers, to actual text used by strings or text to handle anything you want to show, like font-wise on the screen or data-wise. All right. With that said, now we can drag this on this object. And when we let go, it's going to have us pretty much get the data that's in it or set the data that's in it. In this case, we want to set it. And what we're really trying to do here is we're trying to check with a branch. So a branch will allow us that if it's one thing or the other, then it's going to allow us to basically have one action be performed if it's one thing, or a different action if it's another. So in this case, we're going to drag this execution here and plug it in. And now we have it that when it calls this whole function, basically this whole blueprint, it's going to check to see if it's alive. And then we have the ability to say if it's true or false, have it do something. In this case, we only want to have something happen if it's true. And what we want to have is we want to have basically what's called a return, which is sending a value back. And that value can then be used by something else in the game to say, hey, you're not alive, so it's now game over. And to set that, we need an output. So here on the left, you have details. Whenever you select a node, the details will be populated for that node, and each node has different things. Like this initial one, you could put inputs for things you want to put into this function or this blueprint to actually run. For this one, you can set inputs or outputs, similar thing. And then here you have your branch, which doesn't have details, but here it will tell you what the details are for your variable, including what your default values are and things like that. And to actually get this to populate, you would hit compile, and after it compiles, it gives you the ability to now set your default value. But what we want to do here is, if it's true, we know it's game over. So we're going to want an output. And this output we want to call game over. So basically when it hits this and uses this, it's going to say, hey, is the player alive? Actually, my mistake. We're going to actually want to put it here if false. Is he? And this is why you also walk through your code or blueprint to make sure the functionality makes sense. But basically, is it alive? No. Then it's game over. And game over is true. And this is the value we'll be pushing out that can be used anywhere in your game. So say you have certain objects moving around. Once they check if the player is alive, and if they're not, you may want them to stop moving or to despawn and so on and so forth. This is just a quick look at blueprints to give you kind of an idea of how visual coding works in something like Unreal. All right, hopefully this has inspired all you game developers out there to not worry about how you make your game, but just jump in and get it done. You don't need a programming language to make a game, and there's so many different ways you can use visual scripting. Just seeing Unreal and its blueprint system may inspire you to use Unreal to make a AAA quality game, or you may want to make something simpler and just kind of show off to your friends and family. Then you got Game Builder's Garage from Nintendo. So, with all these opportunities, you have so many ways to make games. And if you want to learn more about how the visual script and things like that, there's plenty of tutorials on YouTube, classes on Udemy, or you can even check out like Unity and Unreal's tutorials that they have for actually using their visual scripting systems. So hopefully that'll give you the courage you need to get out there and make something really dope. But with that said, thank you everyone for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, like, subscribe, leave a comment below. If you want to know when I drop more videos like this, the notification is somewhere on either side. I don't even know. But thanks again for watching, and I will catch you all next time.